Well, welcome. My name is Graham, and I am so grateful to have the opportunity to spend this time with you. You know, when I was a teenager, I had a group of friends at church that I spent a fair bit of time with. And there was one particular guy in our group who was, he was different. Now, different is not necessarily bad, but when he brought some materials to church and told us that when combined in a bottle, they would make an explosion followed by a short burst of flames, I began to question whether he was the sort of guy that I needed to be spending time with. Now, at this point, I should have been wise enough to walk away and had nothing to do with this backyard science experiment. But regrettably, I chose to follow him to the empty lot at the back of the church. Well, we watched as he combined the materials in a bottle, then he closed the cap, and then we all ran. We ran as fast as we could. And sure enough, there was an explosion, followed by flames, and a lot of them. Now, what we didn't calculate was the extent of the fire shortly after. And it wasn't long before there's a huge raging fire right there behind our church. Next, there's sirens, fire trucks, firefighters, and they're everywhere. Now, this is bad. I didn't want to be anywhere near this, and I certainly didn't want to get in trouble. You see, the people we choose to hang around can have a big impact on our life. Let me ask you a question. What was the last bad decision that you can remember making? Or maybe I could ask, when was the last time you made a decision that got you in trouble? Well, whatever it was, you may have thought, how could I have allowed that to happen? Why didn't I just walk away? Well, here's the deal. The moment we choose to follow someone who's making a poor choice is the moment that we're not just innocent bystanders, we're now participants. But what's also true is that many of those decisions aren't made by ourselves. A lot of times the reason we did what we did is because we were influenced by others. In other words, friends or the people we spend time with can have a direct impact on us. Ultimately, our friends potentially can have a huge influence on our life now and possibly even where our life ends up later. Now, when it comes to most of the major decisions we make in life, we typically put a lot of thought into them, right? For example, what classes we're going to take, or whether or not we're going to commit to playing in the band, playing soccer, or club volleyball. But when it comes to who we choose to spend time with, sometimes we don't always think about it as much as we should. Sometimes instead of being proactive, we can be reactive. Well, there's good news and there's bad news. Here's the bad news. Friends can pull us down. Here's the good news. Choosing the right friends can actually make us better. Friends are a big deal. And it's not just the friends we choose, but the choices we make that makes us a good friend to someone else. You know, there's a book in the Old Testament of the Bible called Proverbs, and it talks about the importance of deciding which friends we will let influence our decisions. Now, Solomon is credited for writing most of Proverbs, and he was the king of Israel during a really prosperous time. Not only that, but next to Jesus, Solomon was considered the wisest person who ever lived. Now, here's what Solomon says in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 26. He says, "The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." Now, this word righteous means people who do the right thing. Now, when we do the right thing, we're living according to God's plan and His purposes, and we're called righteous. It's about being a good decision maker, a wise decision maker. If you and I want to be the right decision makers who do what's best, not only in the moment, but what's best in our future, Solomon says we need to choose our friends carefully. People who do the right thing. Pay attention to who their friends are because they know that they need friends who are just as invested in their future as they are. Ask yourself, is this person that I'm spending time with Are they leading me to the kind of future that I'm hoping for, or a future that I don't want any part of? You know, I understand that in high school, you can't always choose the kind of people you're around, right? You may even say you don't have any friends right now, and while that may be true, and it may not what you desire, it's more than likely not always going to be this way, right? And the decisions you and I make right now when it comes to friends can save us from a lot of potential pain in the future. So when we're making decisions about who our friends will be or who we'll spend time with, it's important for us to be intentional. That's why Solomon told us to choose our friends carefully in the verse we looked at. Now, Solomon ends the verse by saying this, "But the way of the wicked leads them astray." Now, what he's basically saying here is that the people who are opposite of right decision makers, they're wrong decision makers. They potentially will lead us astray. Now, when we hear that word wicked, we may think of some different things, but what Solomon meant was someone who's doing or doing something wrong. Someone who chooses the wrong path are typically people who think about themselves and they think about their immediate needs. They don't have our future or our best interests in mind. That's why you may have a friend who's a good person, may even be a ton of fun to be around, but you find yourself getting in trouble when you're with them. That's why we don't ask, is this friend good or bad? Instead, we ask, is this friend a good influence on my life right now? And if the answer is no, it doesn't mean it has to stay that way forever. There's hope for everyone, right, to get back on track. But it may be that it's better for me and my future that I don't spend as much time with them right now. Do you remember the story I started with? You know, my friend I followed and participated in that science experiment. I still saw him at church and at school every day. I was still nice to him, but I chose not to hang out with him as much. Here's the bottom line. The friends we choose impact the future we have. And the truth is the same for all of us. If we want great friendships, either today or sometime in the future, then we need to be friends with people who care about our future and influence us in a positive way. Great friendships start with great people. And it's not just choosing the people who we spend time with, it's also learning how to become a great friend. As you and I focus on our character and focus on being the person that does the right thing, you'll grow into a person who'll be a great influence on the people in your circle. Well, a few things I would like for you to do in light of what we've just talked about. First, I want you to consider praying for great friends. Pray for wisdom to know the difference. Pray and ask God to show you what a good friend looks like. And then be willing to ask yourself important questions about your friends. Like, is this person helping me become the person that God wants me to be? Is this person helping me towards the future that I want for my life? Depending on how you answer those questions, there may be friends you need to take a step back from. If you're sensing this, you're going to have the opportunity to talk about that the next time you meet. Let me encourage you to be one who decides what happens next. Don't be passive, be intentional. The friends you choose will impact the future you have. And I believe that God wants us to have life-giving friendships, friendships that make us better, friendships that encourage us, friendships where we can see God at work in the relationship. Invite God into your journey, building a great friendships, and ask God to help you be a great friend to others. These kinds of friendships, they take work, but believe me, the work is worth it.
Thanks for joining us. We got a couple of things going on in PTSM that we're excited to tell you about that are coming up. First, HIGHDEF registration opens up on October 23rd. Sign up in the first 48 hours to get an exclusive PTSM swag pack that comes with custom stickers and a t-shirt. Also coming up in a few weeks, we're having a girls' night and a guys' night. You're not gonna wanna miss these awesome events, and for more information about everything, check out prestontrail.org/events. Thanks again for tuning in, and remember, if you're traveling to Tennessee, keep your ice cream cone out of your back pocket unless you wanna be a criminal and get a ticket. Have a good one, guys.